The most expensive thing a man can be is good. Picture a moment you know too well. Someone asks for a favor you don't want to give. Your instinct says no. Your mouth says yes. Your chest tightens. Heat rises. You smile while something inside you folds. Hours later, regret arrives quietly, heavier than the request ever was. This is the tax you never agreed to pay. Being good is rewarded publicly and exploited privately. Each yes buys approval and sells authority. Each sacrifice feels small until your time, energy, and self-respect are gone. Here is the promise and the warning. The moment you stop paying this tax, friction appears. People question you. Some turn cold. Opportunities disappear. But something else replaces them. Respect. If you need to be liked, turn away now. If you want leverage, stay. What follows will cost comfort, but it will return control to you. Good men are controlled through approval and guilt, not force. Approval works like currency. When it's offered, behavior follows. When it's threatened, compliance rushes in. Guilt completes the mechanism. You are not told you must comply. You are reminded of who you are supposed to be. Fear of rejection quietly outweighs fear of loss. Losing respect feels abstract. Losing belonging feels immediate. The body reacts first. The pulse tightens. The mind rationalizes. Men surrender time, boundaries, and ambition to avoid the discomfort of being seen as selfish, difficult, or ungrateful. Over time, moral identity becomes a leash. I'm a good man turns into I must always be accommodating. Character hardens into obligation. The more consistent you are, the easier you are to predict. And predictability is the dream of every system that wants control without resistance. Once behavior is predictable, management becomes effortless. Requests are framed as expectations. Favors become duties. Your reliability is praised while your autonomy quietly disappears. You are not coerced. You are guided. And guidance feels safer than command. This is the internal realization that changes everything. Goodness itself is not the weakness. Unconditional goodness is. When virtue is automatic, it stops being chosen and starts being exploited. Power begins the moment you see this clearly. Approval loses its grip when it is no longer confused with safety. Guilt weakens when you stop outsourcing identity to reputation. Until then, the system doesn't need to fight you. It only needs to ask, because it already knows you will say yes. Most men never notice the exchange. They feel virtuous, responsible, mature. What they miss is the silent transaction. Approval is paid today. Control is collected tomorrow. By the time resentment surfaces, the pattern is fixed. Breaking it requires awareness first and endurance second. That cost separates men. Virtue becomes dangerous the moment it stops being conditional. Over-reliability sends a signal louder than words. You will absorb pressure without resistance. Once that signal is read, exploitation feels justified, even polite. Requests increase. Expectations harden. Your time becomes communal property. Being nice slowly replaces boundaries. You soften refusals into explanations. You turn limits into negotiations. Each concession feels minor, but together they erase your edge. People don't cross boundaries you enforce. They cross boundaries you explain. Moral consistency is then turned against you. Because you always act a certain way, others plan around it. Your predictability becomes leverage. They appeal to your values when it benefits them and ignore those same values when it doesn't. Virtue becomes a script others use to move you on command. This is where the contrast appears. Virtuous men act correctly regardless of context. Strategic men act correctly within context. One follows principle blindly. The other applies principle deliberately. One is admired and drained. The other is respected and left alone. The internal shift is subtle but decisive. You realize morality without discretion is not integrity. It is exposure. Goodness that cannot say no is not strength. It is access. This does not require becoming cruel or deceptive. It requires reclaiming choice. When virtue is chosen, it carries weight. When it is automatic, it carries cost. Men who miss this lesson remain confused. They do everything right and still lose ground. Men who see it stop advertising goodness and start protecting it instead now. Once you see how virtue becomes a liability, structure replaces sentiment. Machiavelli did not argue against goodness. He argued against goodness without control. Strategic virtue is not hypocrisy. It is sovereignty applied to morality. The first law is conditional goodness. You are kind when conditions align, not because a label demands it. Choice preserves power. Automatic kindness invites extraction. When goodness is conditional, it is respected. When it is reflexive, it is consumed. The second law is controlled concessions. You give selectively, in measured doses, and you stop early. Concessions teach people how much access they have. Too much too soon establishes expectation. Controlled giving creates appreciation and ends entitlement before it forms. The third law is reputation without compliance. You allow others to see you as fair, reliable, and principled without obeying every request. Reputation is an asset, not a leash. You maintain it through consistency of values, not surrender of boundaries. The fourth law is moral distance. You separate your self-worth from others' judgments of your goodness. Distance breaks guilt as a control tool. You listen to feedback without rearranging yourself around it. Morality becomes internal, not performative. The fifth law is consequence acceptance. Strategic virtue accepts friction. Saying no costs approval. Enforcing boundaries creates tension. Sovereign men pay these costs up front. By accepting consequence, you remove leverage from those who threaten it. Together, these laws divide players from pieces. Pieces act morally on command. Players choose morality with timing. Pieces seek to be seen as good. Players seek to remain free. This framework does not make you cold. It makes you precise. You still help, but you help by decision, not obligation. You still give, but you give where it compounds, not where it disappears. Most men fail here by swinging to the opposite extreme. They abandon virtue entirely and call it strength. That is not strategy. That is reaction. Strategic virtue holds power and restraint at the same time. Over time, something shifts. Requests become clearer. Pressure decreases. People stop assuming access. They negotiate instead of demanding. Goodness regains weight because it is no longer guaranteed. The internal realization is decisive. You stop asking how to be good and start asking when. That single change restores agency. Morality becomes a tool you wield, not a script you follow. Machiavelli understood this nuance. He knew virtue without power invites exploitation, and power without virtue invites collapse. Strategic virtue balances both. It protects your values by protecting your position. When these laws are internalized, resentment fades. You no longer feel used because you are no longer available by default. You are present by choice. This is how goodness becomes dangerous again. Not to you, but to those who relied on your compliance. They lose access. You gain respect. And respect, once earned this way, is rarely tested twice. Control returns quietly here. You are no longer pulled by praise or pinned by guilt. Decisions feel cleaner because they are yours. When you give, it lands. When you refuse, it holds. This balance changes the game. People stop appealing to your virtue and start respecting your limits. Negotiation replaces expectation. Choice replaces obligation. You move without apology and without hostility. Over time, your goodness becomes rare. Rarity creates value. Value attracts respect. Respect reduces pressure. Pressure once used against you dissolves. What remains is freedom with weight. Weight creates gravity. Gravity sets boundaries before words are needed. This is the end of the tax and the beginning of earned virtue, carried deliberately, defended calmly, and applied where it strengthens position rather than feeds demand. Permanently. Chosen. Controlled. Yours. In the workplace, the test rarely looks like exploitation. It arrives as a favor. A colleague asks you to just handle this one thing. Good you feels the familiar pull. You don't want conflict. You explain your workload, then agree anyway. You stay late. You absorb the cost. Days later, the favor returns as expectation. Resentment grows, but you stay quiet, trapped by your own reliability. Sovereign you responds differently. You listen without rushing. You pause. You say no, or you set a clear limit. No apology. No long explanation. The moment feels uncomfortable, but it passes. The boundary holds. The respect arrives later. Power line. I don't trade peace today for resentment tomorrow. Now shift to family or social obligation. A request comes wrapped in history and guilt. Good you explains exhaustion, negotiates timing, softens language. You comply halfway and feel trapped anyway. The pattern repeats because nothing changed. Your goodness trained expectation. Sovereign you acknowledges the request and declines cleanly. You don't argue with emotion. You don't justify your life. You let disappointment exist without fixing it. The silence after your answer does the work. Another power line. I don't manage feelings I didn't create. The contrast is structural. Old you yields first and processes anger later. New you accepts friction early and keeps clarity. Old you hopes appreciation will arrive. New you builds respect through consistency. Another scenario. Someone questions your refusal publicly. Good you explains motives to protect reputation. You sound reasonable, but you lose ground. Sovereign you repeats the decision once, then disengages. The room adjusts. Pressure dissolves. Internally, the shift is immediate. The urge to over-explain fades. Your nervous system slows. You realize you can survive being misunderstood. That realization changes everything. Good men believe saying yes preserves harmony. Sovereign men know clarity preserves dignity. One leaks energy through compliance. The other conserves it through choice. Over time, patterns emerge. Fewer requests. Clearer asks. Less guilt. People stop testing what no longer bends. You are no longer rewarded for sacrifice. You are respected for boundaries. This is not cruelty. It is alignment in motion. You move forward without resentment, without apology, without needing approval to validate your choices. The moment you stop being automatically good, your goodness becomes intentional. Intentional goodness has weight, and weight commands respect without a single raised voice. Goodness is not universally rewarded. It functions inside context, and context decides whether virtue compounds or gets taxed. In high-trust, aligned environments, goodness works because incentives match values. Effort is reciprocated. Boundaries are respected. Cooperation builds reputation without draining authority. Here, kindness signals strength because it is met with restraint, not extraction. Goodness fails in competitive, extractive systems. When incentives reward taking more than giving, virtue becomes a resource others feel entitled to spend. The reliable man becomes the buffer. The agreeable man becomes the fallback. His morality is praised while his position erodes. In these environments, being good without limits is not noble. It is expensive. This is where many men drift into moral exhibitionism. They advertise virtue, perform sacrifice, and announce principles hoping protection will follow. It doesn't. Displayed morality invites scrutiny and pressure. The louder your goodness, the more others feel justified testing it. Quiet virtue, paired with boundaries, resists extraction. Calibration replaces ideology here. You do not decide to be good everywhere. You decide where goodness compounds. In aligned environments, you give more freely. In extractive ones, you reduce exposure and increase selectivity. This is not cynicism. It is situational intelligence. The internal check is simple. Does this environment reward reciprocity or punish restraint? One deserves openness. The other demands structure. Men who miss this distinction feel betrayed by life. They did everything right and still lost ground. Men who understand it stop moralizing outcomes and start reading incentives. Goodness becomes deliberate again. When applied correctly, virtue strengthens alliances and protects position. When misapplied, it feeds systems that drain you. Context decides the price. Wisdom is knowing where you stand before you pay it. That awareness keeps generosity sharp, selective, and respected, instead of bleeding away into obligation, fatigue, resentment, and quiet loss over time now. At a certain point, goodness must evolve or it becomes a liability. The shift is internal first. You stop measuring yourself by moral approval and start measuring yourself by self-respect. Approval feels warm but unstable. Self-respect feels quiet and firm. One depends on others. The other depends on alignment. This is where respect separates from likability. Likability is earned through accommodation. Respect is earned through consistency under pressure. Good men are often liked because they absorb discomfort for others. Respected men are not always liked because they refuse to absorb what isn't theirs. One smooths tension, the other contains it. Calm firmness becomes your defining signal. When challenged, you don't escalate and you don't retreat. You repeat yourself once, if at all. You allow silence to carry what words once tried to soften. Pressure no longer speeds you up. It slows you down. That reversal unsettles people who relied on your flexibility. Your inner circle changes without announcement. Fewer people remain close. Fewer opinions matter. Alignment replaces history. Trust is tested, not assumed. Those who stay respect your boundaries without negotiation. Those who leave were attached to your compliance, not your character. The internal realization is decisive. Being respected feels heavier than being liked, but it feels clean. There is no residue of resentment, no hidden anger. You know where you stand with people because you stopped moving to accommodate them. This identity does not seek conflict. It does not advertise strength. It simply refuses to self-betray. Over time, others adjust their behavior around you. Requests become clearer. Guilt disappears. Expectations shrink to reality. You are no longer a good man by default. You are a principled man by choice. That choice restores authority without cruelty. Goodness remains, but it is guarded. And guarded virtue is no longer exploited. It is respected. For the next 5 days, you will interrupt the pattern that made goodness expensive. Each day, say no once without justification. No story, no defense, no moral explanation. A clean refusal is enough. Reduce explanations immediately. When you explain why you are good, busy, or tired, you train others to negotiate your limits. Silence after no is not rudeness. It is finality. Let it stand. Delay responses to requests. You are not obligated to answer instantly. Time restores leverage. Watch who pressures you, who respects the pause, and who disappears when compliance is no longer automatic. Audit reactions and outcomes daily. Notice who escalates guilt, who adjusts behavior, and who respects boundaries without drama. Behavior is truth. Words are noise. The rule is absolute. No debates. No apologies. You are not correcting perception. You are reclaiming authority. By day 5, something changes. Your body relaxes. Requests slow. Clarity replaces resentment. Boundaries stop feeling cruel and start feeling clean. That cleanliness is power returned. Goodness is not meant to be automatic. It is meant to be chosen. When virtue becomes obligation, it becomes exploitable. When it is chosen deliberately, it regains weight and earns respect. Here is the final warning. Moral exploitation thrives on predictability. The more consistently you sacrifice without limits, the more others feel entitled to spend you. Restraint is not selfish. Restraint is how goodness survives pressure. This is the contract. You choose when to give, when to refuse, and when to walk away without explanation. You protect your values by protecting your position. You accept the discomfort of saying no, so you never carry the resentment of saying yes. From this moment forward, your virtue is earned, not assumed. You act from alignment, not guilt. You remain kind without being compliant. And when respect replaces expectation, goodness stops costing you power and starts creating it. Quietly, consistently, without apology, ever.